I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia, and today I'm back with more behind the scenes stories from The Sound of Music. So I guess this really is a part 2 because I have already made a video like this. Click the card. I don't know whether I'll turn this into a series, but there are definitely enough facts that I could probably get at least one more video. So if you want to see more like this, let me know. So in the last video I had 7 stories, today I've only got 5, but let's get going. I mentioned it in the last video and I've mentioned it in plenty of other videos I'm sure, but I don't remember where I first heard all these stories and all these facts about Sound of Music. I heard all of the Sound of Music facts and stories ages ago, and I've heard them so many times since. There are occasionally a few that I specifically remember where I first heard them, but for the most part, nope. In fact, for the 5 on this list, at least 2 of them are from a list I came up with when I was in Salzburg. The day we left for Vienna, we went past St. Michael's Basilica, where they filmed the wedding, and my mum and I convinced the tour guide for me to sit up the front of the bus and give everybody a trivia session. And I just remember the night before pacing up and down the hotel room, rattling off facts as my mum wrote them down. And at least 2 of those are on this list, so I pretty much know most of it from memory. Now, let me share it with you all. The first story I have actually relates to the wedding, and since I just talked about the church at Wannsee, it's quite fitting. So, when they were filming the wedding, which I believe was actually the first on-location scene that they shot, the actor who was playing the bishop had just disappeared. I can't remember exactly what happened, but he couldn't be found. So the bishop you see in the movie is the actual bishop of the cathedral. Is that how that position works? I'm not sure. But it was the real bishop, it wasn't an actor. Maybe that's why there's no dialogue in the scene. Chris and Julie were already married after all. Being married to each other would have been very awkward and probably not even legal. I don't think that's why the scene is completely silent, but it's just funny to think about. So the next story has to do with the wardrobe and hair and makeup department, and that is the fact that a lot of the cast members had to have their hair dyed. Unlike most of the stage versions, or at least most of the stage versions up to that point, as I understand, Bob Wise didn't want everyone to be blonde, and quite a number of them were brunettes. But they still needed to have some blondes in there. They wanted to give Julie some blonde highlights, but they came out sort of orange, and so they just solved that by making her blonde all over. And it really is a very red blonde colour that she's sporting. I think in the opening scene she looks more blonde than she does in the rest of the movie, but for the most part she's strawberry blonde. You'll also notice her hair is quite a bit darker in the My Favourite Things scene. And that was because that was the first scene they shot. So they probably hadn't got the dyeing process tweaked perfectly yet. And the other person you'll notice whose hair changes completely in the movie is Nicholas Hammond, aka Friedrich. They decided Nicholas needed to be blonde the night before they started filming. So they bleached his hair pretty much right before the camera rolled, which is why his hair is so much darker in that scene compared to the rest of the movie. And because they did it so quickly, he ended up with blisters all over his scalp. Not fun. To add more things onto Nicholas's plight, he actually ended up growing 6 inches in 6 months. When they started filming he was 5'3", when it all wrapped up he was 5'9". So my next story is about the real Maria von Trapp, and if you watched my video a few weeks back, you'll know she does actually appear in the movie. She and her daughter and her granddaughter walk across the shot in the background during I Have Confidence, and she was not happy with the way things work on a film. She wasn't happy about having to do take over take over take over take. And when it was all done and dusted, she apparently said something to the effect of, "Well, that's it, I'm giving up on my acting career." Though she did tell Christopher Plummer she thought he was far more handsome than her husband. And honestly, yeah, She's right. Apparently when they met up years later, I can't remember the exact circumstances or the location or anything like that, but when Chris walked into the room, Maria shouted, "My husband! My husband!" The next story is about little Kimmy. And the big one you'll always hear about Kimmy is that she couldn't swim. That was in my last video, so we all already know that one. And that probably would have been the scene where you use a double. They were originally going to use a double, but in the end they didn't. But they did use a double for the final scene. By the time they were ready to film that final scene of them all going over the mountains, Kim had gained so much weight that Christopher Plummer could not carry her. Or maybe he just refused to. Either way, she was big enough that they needed a double. She had just been eating artichokes and bread. I think she had some sort of dietary restriction, condition, something like that. And that was all she could eat. And so she ate a lot of that. She gained so much weight. Chris couldn't carry her, so they used a double. So the Gretel on Christopher Plummer's shoulders in the final scene is not actually Kim. So now we're back to the kids. Many of the children had siblings of their own, and some of those siblings auditioned for the film as well. Angela Cartwright's sister Veronica and Debbie Turner's sister Patricia auditioned for the movie. And Shami and Car's little sister Darlene did actually make it into the movie. Sort of. Obviously nobody in the cast could hold a candle to Julie's voice. So everyone was dubbed or mixed. And in the case of the kids, they were mixed. They did do all their own singing, but there were another 6 or 7 kids that they got to boost the sound. And one of those kids was Shami's little sister. And she actually has a bit of a line of her own. She's actually the one singing when Kurt does his high goodbye in So Long Farewell. That wasn't Dwayne. And that's everything I've got for you today, guys. Let me know which one was your favourite story. And if you want to see more of these, let me know. Because I think I could probably do at least another one. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long, farewell!